Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. This is going to be sort of a part two of Kingsman, not because I think not because a part two is planned, but because I omitted something important. And I had the slides there and everything prepared, and for some reason I got to the end of the discussing the semi-sextile sign and all of that, and I guess I decided in my mind I was done. So let me go and just wrap up. Okay, so we talked about the Kingsman. We had the first film and the second one. And in the first one, there was the the neurological wave that caused people to become aggressive and uninhibited in their violence and aggression. And they were going to use that, send out a signal via satellite to phones that would then trigger this aggression among people and cause the world basically to kill itself off, people to kill one another until the population has been significantly reduced. That was the first one. Then the second film, The Golden Circle, we saw that the programming there was pointing perhaps a little more directly towards this semi-sextile sign where the missile hits. And then after that, there was a drug cartel with a hostage situation, type of hostage situation, making demands. And what the president of the United States decided to do was to have people basically put into camps, or who are sick with the virus, put into a place where they would die of the virus with absolutely no intention of trying to save their lives at all, but caging them in there to make sure that they actually did die there without escaping. And so there was this sort of resembling the whole idea of the FEMA camps and the people when they do have that, if they do have people in camps at some point, when they die off, I've mentioned this in other videos, they're likely to use the cover story that, well, we're doing our best to take care of everybody, but the virus, but the pandemic, and man, they're all in close quarters, and they're dying. We're doing the best we can to save everybody's life. And if that's the plan for them to do that, well, the Kingsman Golden Circle film sort of would confirm that, or actually, as predictive programming, show that that's the sort of thing they have in mind here. And so we looked at that semi-sextile sign, and we saw that it seems to point to probably December of 2020. I'm not sure of that, but there are a lot of semi-sextiles. So you have the eclipse on December 4th as a semi-sextile date. The sun with Pluto, semi-sextile. And then you also have the grand or great conjunction. That's Jupiter and Saturn in a conjunction, but they're going to be in a conjunction in Aquarius, which is a thing we talked about a little bit. But 3 semi-sextile relationships: Mercury with Saturn, Sun with Saturn, Sun with Jupiter, all on the winter solstice and all of that. And in fact, I don't know, this December 21st date is interesting to me. I think people who followed the whole Mayan calendar thing back in 2012, wasn't it December 21st that they said that was going to be basically the end of the world and all of that? I don't know. So maybe there's this hint that this is the year December 21st is the big date. We know in the iPet Goat 2, the December head has a crater, big crater. So it seems like something big happens in December, whether or not it's on either of those dates. But it seems like that symbol in Kingsman could be pointing to this symbol, pointing to an eclipse with the semi-sextile, which should be pointing to December 14th or thereabout, close to it. So then what I didn't talk about was these eclipses in general. Okay, when we looked in the classroom, so there's your December head with the big crater. When we looked in the classroom, of course, we saw the 2020 calendar, but we also saw the 2017 calendar, in which the months are ordered differently, and the eclipse here, this looks like an eclipse, this eye that looks like a black eye, also has the appearance of an eclipse. And this was something J.K. Bugout discovered, I don't know when, but years ago. And so you had January, February, March. On that reading, the months go back row to front row. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. July would be front row. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. And there's your August 21st, 2017 Great American Eclipse. Okay, and so this 2017 to 2020 the eclipse in 2017 to the annular eclipse in 2020 is important, because somehow this annular eclipse is something like a central event for a transition to connect 2001 to 2020. Well, you can review that in the Donnie Darko series, but the idea is that they have this sort of plan that goes from 2001 with the 9/11 attacks, and then after the 9/11 attacks, you expect everything to really take off, World War III to go hot, everything to go crazy, but it didn't. It just was this long, drawn-out period of constant conflict, constant changes in government, constant new executive orders, new laws passed, liberties being taken away. And it was very gradual, and people were aware of it who were paying attention, saw it happening, but there was never that big catastrophe. It never seemed to come. That's supposed to be joined, according to Donnie Darko, the way, at least the interpretation that I think is accurate in Donnie Darko, comes back in 2020 with the June 21st annular eclipse, followed by the conjunction with the dog star, Sirius. And you have your buck moon in that sequence. And we had that same exact sequence in 2001, by the way. So there's the June 21st eclipse and buck moon on the 5th of July and all of that. And so there's this connection between the years. And then after that, you get the chaos in the second half of the year. But it went from 2017 eclipse, Great American Eclipse, to June 21st annular eclipse, to the period after it, all leading up to, with some chaos, it looks like this December. Now, that's not to say that we won't have huge events. We talked about in my last video, I mentioned not my last video, 2 videos ago about August, I mentioned the possibility of something happening on or around August 3rd, August 2nd, 3rd, and also we had that hurricane going. So you could see the whole hurricane period being a threat, right? August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and so on. And on the 4th, there was the Beirut explosion, which is huge. It was a very big event. Maybe that's something. August 22nd, we talked about that. We talked about how that could lead to, that could be the violence. Now, somebody in the comments made a really interesting observation. Remember, in the first Kingsman film, there's all the violence in the church. That's where it starts. That's their test case. Where's the church? In Kentucky. Where is the militia supposed to go? Back on August 22nd, Louisville, Kentucky. And so if this is predictive programming, it may even be picking out the state where we're going to see the first violence, the 119, so 1 hour, 19 minutes, the 9/11 violence, that when you have the slaughter of the church, that this takes off where? In Kentucky. So it's just something to look at and think about. Maybe that's important. But we also have in The Simpsons, for example, that this episode that is, I think, called, which episode was it? It's not To Surveil with Love. That's a different one. I've forgotten the name of the episode, but I can put that in the description. We have the August 21st Great American Eclipse. That's the path it followed. Okay, that's an actual map. And here is that eclipse depicted in The Simpsons. And then while they're watching the eclipse, they say, we're going to remember this for years. 4 years. And 4 years takes you from 2017 to 2021. And then she sees this eclipse, this time passing, with the gears moving around a lot, and gets bored because a lot of time passes from this eclipse, 2017, to the ring that she's supposed to be looking for. That's your annular eclipse in 2021, the Ring of Fire eclipse, at which point she's told about secret societies looking for a gem on the first full moon after the eclipse, seems like, referring to the annular eclipse. So that puts us at the buck moon, just like we've seen in I Pet Goat 2. And what do you see? Great crimes kill holy sage. And this sort of antichrist being released and all hell breaking loose on earth. And, just like in the Kingsman, it's the church getting killed off or something after this point. It's starting with as then sort of 9/11. Now, what I mention all that to point out that this 2017 eclipse, in relation to the annular eclipse, and now in relation to the semi-sextile eclipse, which could be December 14th, 2020, that what we find is a really interesting relationship between three eclipses, okay? We have the August 21st eclipse. Then you have the April 8th, 2024 eclipse, which is going to intersect near the New Madrid fault line, okay? And the middle date is December 14th. Look, if you take the Great American Eclipse, August 21st, and add 1,211 days, you land on December 14th. If you do that a second time, you land on April 8th, 2024. In other words, we have a Great American Eclipse here. We have another, basically a Great American Eclipse that's going to cross the United States again 7 years later, and the exact midpoint of that 7-year period, bracketed by these eclipses that cross in the United States, is the December 14th eclipse. Not pointing to here. The December 14th eclipse, which is the one with the semi-sextile. It's the only eclipse that I've found with the semi-sextile date. The August 21st eclipse that began it also had a semi-sextile. The December 14th one has a semi-sextile. The June 21st eclipse did not. And I didn't find any others here, and I've not been able to get the future, all these planetary aspects on a site that I could read and understand to see if this one also is a semi-sextile. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but I'm not sure. I just don't have the data. So somebody who's good at reading that sort of thing can take a look. You're looking for planetary aspects. You're looking for the semi-sextile on a date of a solar eclipse. And that would be interesting information. Okay. But what, in 2020, this is the one. In 2021, which I was able to see, there's no semi-sextile on eclipse. Okay. As far as I remember, that's what I looked and saw. So 2022 and following, I didn't have the data. Okay. But what you have then is one more reason to look at this December 14th date as important. Again, not that it's not going to blow up right on that date. It may be more plausible to think that it actually happens on that December 21st date or between those dates or around it somewhere in December. But clearly, this eclipse seems to be a significant thing. If the 7-year period is important, if the first and the final eclipses are important, and we know for a fact the 2017 eclipse was important in the 2017 calendar, and IPEC 02, it also is a marker for the beginning of a period that leads to the Ring of Fire eclipse in 2020. Okay, so we know that they're important. So I would not be surprised at all if December 14th, as the midpoint of the 7-year period, is very important. All right, so that's all I wanted to say. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Take care.